Carol, I'm so excited. I'm really so happy that you're here because I've been looking forward to this conversation for such a long time. Do you want to tell people who you are and what you do and a little bit of your story?
Yeah, of course. It's great to be here, Terry. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. So my name's Carol Urry. I am an alcohol control coach. I work with mums that have got teenage and young adult children, and I help them really to get a handle on their drinking, because often, just like, it's really using my experience, because we often know deep down that we're drinking too much. We try and take a break. It's really hard to do that because alcohol, as we'll discover later, is an addictive substance, very much like, sugar, gambling, shopping, lots of things. And we use that, that addictive substance, and we can't get away from it once it's embedded in us, and it's a natural, a sort of a habit and a natural thing to go to. It's really hard. So I help mums why they're using alcohol, really. And we just get to the bottom of the reasons, and often, just like eating, it's often emotionally triggered. And we'll go into the dopamine bit, but sugar has the very same effect, or any food that you enjoy and you maybe have too much of and know you shouldn't have too much of, releases that dopamine hit, and it's quite difficult. So my story really started, I was very much a social drinker. In fact, in my 20s, I probably didn't drink very much at all. And it wasn't until my kids were born that I started using alcohol to de-stress at the end of the day and just unwind. And my daughter was 6 when my son was born, Nathan. I knew straight away there was something not quite right with Nathan. He was delayed with his speaking. It's sort of 3.5. He was delayed with his walking. I think it was about 19 months before he got on his feet. I was backwards and forwards to see the nurse. She said, Carol, there's nothing wrong. But I knew deep down inside there was something wrong. And he started developing this head banging habit out of frustration. And then a very good friend of mine who ran the preschool where he went said to me, Carol, I think there are some issues. And I went, oh, like, thank goodness somebody's noticed. Like, everybody's telling me just don't be paranoid. And he was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, which is now on the autistic spectrum, and ADHD when he was in primary school. And I blamed myself. I thought that I had done something while I was carrying him, and it was my fault that he was having the challenges and issues that he was having. I was in an unhappy marriage. It put a lot of stress on my marriage. I was dealing with all the education stuff because I was working while I dropped the kids off at school, do my job. I was a care worker out in the community, and then pick the kids up from school, and then be home, cook tea, get the kids ready, read the stories. My husband went out, did his job, and then came home. But I was the sort of wife that ran around and did everything, like us women tend to do sometimes. It's like, why on earth do we do this?
Yeah.
And I just couldn't wait. Like, if it was, read another story, Mum, it was like, in fact, in the end, you know what? I've just remembered there was cassette tapes when my kids were little. And there was something called the Gazunder Gang, and it was the gang that lived under the bed. So, when we're scared of monsters, these were like really happy, lovely little people. And there was the book, and then I used to press play on the tape, and Nathan would sit reading the book, listen to the tape, and I would dash down and get my glass of wine. How sad is that? But that was how it was. I spent my time reading with him, and then when he wanted more, and it was impinging on my drinking. And it got to a point where I was probably having a couple of bottles of wine a week, which wasn't too bad compared to what it was before I gave up. But I definitely leaned on it as a crutch. And eventually my marriage broke down when Nathan was 8 and Lucy was 13, and we split up. And that's really when my drinking ramped up. Yeah.
Why do we do that? Why is it that it becomes a crutch? I know people use food in that way. I know the emotional side of eating. Why is alcohol that crutch too? Is it is it physical? Is it the addictive side of it? Is there, what is it that makes it the go-to?
It's the dopamine hit that we get.
Okay. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. It affects the nucleus accumbens in our brain. It affects everything in our brain. That is the pleasure center. That is the reward center. So what happens is when you do something, and it's an artificial hit. I mean, normal dopamine, natural dopamine is from exercising, having a good laugh at a show, reading a good book, intimate with your partner. That is the natural dopamine walking out in nature. The artificial dopamine hit, which is much higher, is from alcohol, sugar, gambling, shopping, whatever turns you on. I mean, the young kids, like with gaming, my son is a massive gamer. And it's that artificial whack of a dopamine hit. So that is why we go back to it again and again and again, because what happens over time is our brain recognizes that hit and goes, oh, that's fantastic. Do it again. 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 And we get into this cycle of wanting this dopamine hit, but over time, because of the workings of our brain and because of the receptors and the dopamine, the joy gets less and less and less. But alcohol not only like I used it for numbing, like emotional eating maybe. I used it because I just couldn't cope with what life was throwing at me at that time. So I just buried myself in a glass of wine. And it was emotional. I mean, I just want to say to your listeners, obviously, we're not talking about a physical addiction here, because that is completely different.
Yeah.
If there's anybody listening that has a physical addiction to alcohol, then they need to go see their GP. And there's some outpatient detoxing and rehab things you can do. We're talking about emotional issues here. So your brain gets used to whatever substance or whatever foods you're eating. And then it gets to a point where it switches off the good feeling chemicals in your brain, your natural chemicals, and it relies on that, what you're putting in your mouth, to do the work for the brain. So it then relies on it, and it gets scared because it subconsciously actually thinks it needs it for survival, because that's how our primitive brain works. This is good. We need this. This helps us feel X, Y, Z. We need to keep doing this. So when we come to switch off, it's not impossible. It can be done, but it's a matter of unpicking that thought process and working on your mindset, really, Terry.
Yeah. So interesting, isn't it? Because it starts, I'm sure, as just a glass of wine on a Friday. And then it's a glass of wine on a Friday and Saturday and Sunday. And then before you know it, over time, it's every day and more of it. I can completely empathize with that. I've been in that situation where, well, I'm guessing you'd say you don't have a dependency, but it's a habit, and it's a part of your life that, like you say, starts to get in the way of other things. And it comes out of nowhere. It just creeps in, and before you know it, it's all the time and it's every day. It's quite scary. And actually, while you were talking about it, and you were talking about the effects and the brain and the response and how your body wants it and then needs more, I was thinking, this is a drug. It's a drug. It is. So society sees it as unacceptable to be on drugs such as cocaine, heroin, that sort of thing. Yeah, alcohol is quite the opposite. It's almost like it's not okay if you're not drinking.
You've hit the nail on the head there, Terry. It is the only substance that you have to defend yourself for not having. You know, if you'd stop smoking and you, say, went down the pub, you'd get a massive pat on the back. Be like, well done. And it's the same with losing pounds. You know, if you say, oh, I'm on a health kick and I want to drop a few pounds for whatever it is, and somebody's not seen you for 4 or 5 weeks, you get a massive pat on the back and well done. And you just think, it's quite sad, really, that our physical appearance and how people see us affects how they react towards us. It's like a pat on the head, good girl. But like you said, I mean, that's on the eating side of things, but on the alcohol side of things, it's like, what? You don't drink? What's the matter with you? And everybody labels me an alcoholic, which I wasn't an alcoholic. And people listening to this, you know, there'll be people that have done the traditional rehabilitation and maybe in AA. It wasn't affecting my life. It was affecting my relationships. It was affecting me to a point where it was stopping me. The initial crunch was when my son was stuck at Birmingham New Street Station. The last train had gone. There was some works. It was a bank holiday weekend and I couldn't go and get him. That was a decision, one of the decisions that I thought, nah, this is just not on. Whereas someone that is physically dependent, I mean, the world can come crashing round. It doesn't always happen that way, but can come crashing round. There he is. But I put myself in what's called a grey area drinking, which is, like you said, it becomes a glass of wine, then it's a couple of glasses of wine, and then it's not just once a week, it's 2 or 3 nights in the week. And you build up a tolerance, and that's the thing with alcohol. One glass of wine or a large glass of wine might make you feel a little bit tipsy, but the more you have of it, the more your body gets used to it, the more tolerance you build up, and the more you need to get that high. And then in the end, I mean, I used to work out in the community, and I've been out to very successful people that have been, you know, extremely wealthy people that have used alcohol to de-stress, and they're in a situation now where they've got alcohol-related Alzheimer's, which is called Korsakoff, because it just damages your body and your brain so much over time. And there's no joy. As I say, it not only numbs the bad stuff, it numbs the good stuff too. So if something like this particular person used to enjoy cricket, and we'd take them out to a cricket match, and all they were bothered about was getting to the pub for a drink, because there was just no enjoyment anymore, because you're just completely consumed by whatever it is you're addicted to. So yeah, it is a drug, absolutely. And alcohol kills more people than all the drugs put together per year.
Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, 3 million people a year. Yeah.
Wow, that's a
alcohol
scary
related
number.
Yeah.
So something that comes up for my ladies quite often is confidence with socializing, confidence going to an event, seeing people, even just going out into town with the girls for a night out, for example. For a lot of my ladies, that can be a big deal and something that needs a lot of confidence, because we're so self-conscious of the way we look. Especially if you're in a bigger body, for example, it can be really difficult to try and get dressed up, try and put yourself out there, try and fit in, get on the dance floor, because, who am I to take up space, that kind of thing. So for a lot of people, alcohol is going to be the provider of that confidence, right?
Yeah.
How do you get around that? Because how do you, not wording this very well. I'll chop this up so that it's not so.
No, I think I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. What can you do? What can you advise somebody who says, but I need it because if I don't drink, I don't have the confidence to do what I want to do?
Well, there's no getting away from the fact that alcohol gives you that buzz, and it does give you that buzz. It gives you a buzz for about 20 minutes, half an hour. And then you need more of it to try and catch that buzz, but you never catch that buzz back. So I completely get a bit of Dutch courage, a bit of confidence. But I always look at what cost. At what cost? Because alcohol affects our prefrontal cortex, which is a bit around our forehead, and that's our executive function inside of our brain. So once we have one drink, it's hard to say no to another one, because it's part of our decision making, our executive function inside of our brain. So let's just build a scenario that, you're a lady that's bigger, You want confidence to go out. You get yourself dressed, you put a little bit of makeup on, out you go, and you have that first drink and you feel great. As the night wears on and you get more alcohol inside you, you become riskier in your behaviour. So you can put yourself in positions that you probably wouldn't like to be in. I used to get really leery and loud, really. And I am such a placid, laid-back person, but particular drinks would make me quite obnoxious, and I'd be a bit argumentative with people. So it's at what cost? Leaving your bag behind in the venue, losing your card, losing your debit card, losing your keys, texting when you've had too much to drink and saying things, and I've done that loads of times and upset family members, which still to this day is a bit raw, I think. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I suppose it's at what cost. And then when you get home, because alcohol affects our gut, it affects something called ghrelin in our gut, which is the food hormone, the hunger hormone. We end up binge eating when we get back home. So I teach, and I know you teach, Terry, it's all around mindset and being happy in your own skin, being happy being in a bigger body, being happy how you are. And I think for me, I played the tape forward in my head. So I would continue to go down the pub with my husband on Friday, Saturday, Sunday afternoon to watch footy. But I had to plan. I had to pre-plan in my head. It'd be like, okay, Carol, go down. What are you going to drink? I'm going to drink lime and soda. And I'd have a conversation with myself in the mirror. I'd be talking to myself. If people heard me, they'd think I was bonkers. And it would be like, okay, well, what happens if you want to drink? And I would say to myself, I'll get my phone out, because on my phone, I would record all the reasons why I wasn't drinking. And then I would have somebody accountable as well. Like I would say, look, I'm going down to the pub tonight. I'm not going to drink. If I get a craving and I want to drink, then what I'll do is I will call you and we'll have a conversation, or I'll leave early when everybody by 9:30, 10 o'clock is blottoed anyway, so they're not going to see you leave. So I would play the tape forward in my head and think, well, if you do drink, what's going to happen in the morning? Then I'm going to feel really hungover. So if you need confidence as a bigger person to go out, it's really knuckling down into the reasons why you feel like you feel. And I know you do a fantastic job at that. And it is unpicking why are you not comfortable with your bigger body? What are the real issues around it? Where does it stem from? Where does it come from? Let's look at that. Let's look at, what's going on in your head. So alcohol and using that for confidence can have consequences. And then are you going to be confident when your mate rings you up the following day and goes, Terry, you were dancing on the tables last night. You stripped off down to your bra last night, or you gave someone a real hard time last night. And because it affects our memory center in our brain, we can't remember if we drink too much. So what does that do to your confidence if you let yourself go down that road? So it's thinking about the consequences, I think, of when you're having that drink. I know that sounds pretty harsh, but for me, because I know I've worked with my clients, and it's really working with someone that can understand you and how you feel and what makes you tick. And also preconceptions. We have this model of the world. I was talking to you about my emotional change therapy. Yes. So we see the world through our experiences. So we have a pair of glasses on that tell us all our experiences in life. And however, because you're in a bigger body, or because you drink too much, smoke too much, shop too much, you're always broke because you're always gambling. We need to look at the perception of your world, really, and dig into that and why it is. And I think until you get to the nitty-gritty bit, yeah, you can gloss over with a glass of wine for confidence, but it has consequences. So my advice would be use someone like you, Terry, where you can get into the mindset, find out where it all started, start to accept who you are, start to love who you are. It doesn't define you being in a bigger body. Alcohol didn't define me. People can call me an alcoholic. Do you know what? I really don't care. It's not part of me. It isn't part of me. And I think until we dig deep down, we're always going to use substances and, things to fill that void, for sure. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. It's actually a real joy to hear you say that, because this is the way that I talk to my ladies about food and body. Quite often the food is a mask for something. Whenever we talk about the confidence to go somewhere or do something, the questioning is around why you feel like that. Let's look at why you're actually feeling like that. And quite often it's not, like you say, it's not the alcohol, it's not the food, it is other things that are impacting, and that is the way we try and deal with it. It's really interesting. The consequences thing is so important, and I think a really good way to approach it, because I have a standing joke with a couple of friends that Friday Terry, she was a bit of an idiot. Saturday Terry, not happy with her. It's kind of and it's because I've woken up and I've got a hangover or something. I'm like, Friday Terry was a right idiot. She did not need all of that wine. But that's the thing, isn't it? The consequences are there. What did you do? Do you even know what you did? And then when we tie that into the things that my ladies go through, quite often a lot of that next day guilt and the next day shame is quite often tied in with food, because it's a case of, and then I went to the chip shop on my way home, and then I got X, Y, and Z, and then I had this when I got home, even though I wasn't hungry, and I've raided the cupboard and even sat drinking, even if it's just a drink at home, and I've had a couple of glasses of wine, and now I want all the crisps and all the chocolate and anything I can get my hands on. And like you say, it's down to the effects on the ghrelin. Now, I know about ghrelin, but I didn't know that alcohol affected ghrelin.
Yeah,
so that's
it does.
really interesting.
In fact, I'll share something with you very quickly. There's a lady called a psychologist called Alia Crum, and people can look it up on YouTube, and it's a milkshake experiment that she did.
I know about this, yes.
Oh, you do? Oh,
yes.
that's fantastic.
Go on, talk about it though.
Well, she got some people in, a group of, say, 40 students, and what they did was they measured their ghrelin levels through a catheter that was hooked up into their arm, and she gave them an indulgent milkshake, and she said, here's an indulgent milkshake. It's 350, or was it 350 calories? I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was 650 calories, 30 grams of fat. They had to go hungry, so they'd not eaten anything and they were really hungry. And then they had to tick a chart as to how full they felt and how they enjoyed it. And they all ticked the chart and said it really filled them up and they felt great, and it was an indulgent thing to have. And then what she did was she sent them away, and then the following week she brought them all back again, and then she gave them another milkshake that was labelled 150 calories that had very little fat in it, and asked them how hungry they felt, and they were all starving. Most of them drunk, well, they all drunk it. Some of them felt hungry still afterwards. In fact, most of them felt hungry afterwards, and they measured their ghrelin levels. And when you're full and satisfied, your ghrelin levels are very low. The hunger hormone's been satisfied. But when you're still hungry, the ghrelin levels are quite high. So she collected all the data, got them all back, and just hit it with them and said each milkshake was exactly the same calorie content, exactly the same fat content. It's just a label, and you believing that the first one was very indulgent and made you feel completely full. In fact, some of them didn't even finish it because they were so full. And the second one was exactly the same, but it had this physiological effect on their hunger hormones in their tummy, because their brain was telling them that they were full because of the indulgent one, and they were still hungry because of the light milkshake. That is like amazing. It just shows you how powerful our brains are. It really does, that it can actually physically affect the hunger hormone in our tummies. So that just shows you, like you said, you don't feel hungry, but you'll go to the cupboard and eat something anyway, you know, and I remembered what I was saying about the emotional change therapy, actually, in our perception about going out. We have this perception that, you know, people in a bigger body, people make judgment, some people probably don't even care, don't recognize it, treat you exactly the same. And because it's our perception of maybe someone along the line has called us, you know, whatever horrible name they've called us, or at school, that gets ingrained in our subconscious. And then we sort of expect it when we go out and think people are going to say the same thing. And it's our perception. And do you know what? The majority of the time, people don't give two hoops, really. They really don't. And it's all this self-talk, this negative self-talk that we give ourselves constantly. And I said to my clients, be aware of what you're saying to yourself. Be aware, because you can guarantee, if you're a bigger person going out, or if you're a person that's trying to give up alcohol and going out on a social occasion, your self-talk will be saying, you need a drink, you know, to chill out, or you can't wear that because people will think you look ridiculous. Who the heck do you think you are going out there? Yeah, look at her, you know, she's as thin as a rake, or whatever, you know. People, you get what I mean, your self-talk, and it's just being aware of that self-talk. It's like having the devil and the angel on his shoulder, and it's like, no, most people don't care less, really don't. And I think again, that's, you know, using a coach and you, Terry, into getting down to the nitty-gritty of what happened. Why are we like we are? We're very complex creatures, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. Yes, we are. And that's it. Quite often we've just had some conversation around this in the membership. Actually, we were doing confidence and specifically when you're socializing and things. And we were saying exactly that quite often nobody cares. Nobody's talking about you. Nobody is pointing, laughing, or doing all the things that you've convinced yourself they're doing. These are self-projections. They are worries that we're projecting onto other people before they've even had a chance to do that to you. And ultimately, in the very, very small minority of times that people do talk, because, you know, we're humans and people do talk, you have to kind of think, well, it doesn't matter, because they're going to talk about me for 2 minutes. It's not going to impact my life because I don't know about it, or I am not interested in what they have to say about me because it's their opinion. It's not a fact. And you can really let this stuff eat away at you if you let it. But you just have to say, well, it doesn't matter to me because I know my worth, and my worth is in my worth means that I have a place in this world to socialize, to have a good time, to be who I want to be as I am. And I don't need food and I don't need alcohol to excuse that or give me the confidence to do it.
No, exactly. And like you said, you sort of go out, and I mean, like I went down to help. There's a little community that look after the churchyard in the village, and they were short on people. So I went down, and I know all the villagers. I've lived in the village for, 20 odd years. And I was sat next to a lady who's we've not had a conversation probably about 5 or 6 years. And she didn't know that I'd given up drinking. And she was, I didn't realise you were an alcoholic, Carol. Straight out like that. That used to really put me on the defence. And now I just think, do you know what? You don't know anything about my life, because she's a very sort of, she's not a good friend. She's just somebody I know in the village. And I thought, you know nothing about me. You've got no idea about me, my family, how I think, how I work, nothing. So I just had to pull myself up because I could feel it. I could feel that heckles on the back of my neck coming up. And I just thought, no, Carol, because, you know, you are you. You love you. You don't make any excuses for how you are, Carol, because you are you. You are unique. You are loved. You are accepted for who you are. And there's only you can do that. Nobody else. And I think if we go out into the big wide world looking to try and make other people happy, we will never, ever, 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 ever do that. The only people we can make happy is ourselves. And I think when we're happy, it shines and we make other people happy. So we need to take, like for me, it was my responsibility to make me happy. I used to look out to other people all my life. I've been a people pleaser, not anymore. But we can be people pleasers, can't we? And we feel this pressure on us to look a certain way, behave a certain way. And it's like, just a minute, you know, somebody across the road who we know walks by and doesn't see us and doesn't give us a wave, we can sort of start playing the tape in our head. Oh no, what have I done to upset them? Oh, crumbs, they're not going to talk to me. We're supposed to be going out for coffee next week. Should I text her? Is she upset with me? And we start this tape rolling. And really, you know what? She might have had 10 billion things on her head. She might have come from the doctors and had an awful thing happened, 1,000 other things. And the perception we put on things, just that negative self-talk. Yeah, so no, it's down to us.
Yeah.
And that's where we come in as coaches, isn't it? Just bringing that out in people and helping them to love themselves for who they are.
Absolutely. And that's why we seek the external validation, because we don't have faith in ourselves as a good person, a valuable person, somebody who people love, somebody who people respect. We don't feel that. So we look for those external sources who tell us that. But actually, you're right. It's got to start inside. You've got to see your own worth, your own value. You've got to give yourself that kindness and the compassion and look after yourself. And then, like you say, it shines out bright, and then everybody reacts to that, and they feel that and they feed that off you. Everybody wants to be around somebody who's happy and confident and bright in themselves. How do you talk to people, Carol, when you start to say no to drinking, when you start to say, right, actually, I am going to rein it in. I'm not going to drink. Maybe I'm going to have a night out with no alcohol, or maybe I am only going to drink, say, on a Saturday evening, if you're used to doing it in the week. How do you start telling people when they're questioning why you're not drinking?
There's two ways of looking at it. There's people that will ask you why, and it's really none of their business, and you can just tell them a pack of lies. You just say, well, I'm on medication, you know. It depends. For me, it really depended on the level of friendship. I didn't tell anybody for a few weeks, actually. And then when I went down the pub and people were asking, I just told them that I was just on a bit of a health kick. You know, I just decided that I'd been drinking too much. It was affecting me at work, and I was sick of getting up with a hangover. And that's what I would tell my friends. But anybody else that asked, who, like maybe the bar person who I didn't know very well, I'd just be, oh, I'm on medication, I can't drink at the minute. So it's really down to you. And I don't think you need to justify to other people why you're doing what you're doing. It really isn't any of their business. The thing is, you've got to work on your mindset. So what was your original question, Terry? Because I've gone off now and I can't remember what you said.
How do you start to answer the questions when people ask you why you're not drinking?
Oh, there you go. I've answered that one then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like, it's none of your bloody business why I'm not drinking.
Said exactly like that. And then everybody's, all right, okay, not going to ask that question again.
You can have a list. You can have a list of things. You can tell them whatever you like. You really can.
Actually, I quite like your direct approach. I decided I'm sick of getting up with a hangover. I don't like the way alcohol makes me feel anymore. I'm just not going to drink.
Yeah.
I don't think it needs to be a big deal.
No. The thing is with that, though, it used to hold a mirror up to them and they used to think, oh, Carol didn't drink that much. I drink twice as much as Carol. Oh, maybe I have a problem. And they often get really defensive around that.
Really?
So a lot of people in my local pub, nobody's had an in-depth conversation around drinking with me at all. And it just shines a light on their habit. And that's what happens when you stop drinking. It makes them question something that really deep down they know they need to deal with, but they're not dealing with it.
There's so much of this that echoes dieting. It's absolutely crazy. Quite often, if you stop dieting and you start being more of an intuitive eater, then everybody around you is suddenly questioning everything that you eat and everything that they eat. And then they start saying, well, I'm eating like this. And if you're eating like that, then one of us is wrong. And yeah, it holds this mirror up to themselves. You're right. Yeah. And often it's not what you're doing that is upsetting them. It's the fact that they're now questioning what they're doing instead. Yeah,
exactly. It is. It just shines a light on their behaviour too, especially around alcohol. And, society, the same with, you've got to be on a diet, Slimming World, Weight Watchers, blah, 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 blah. You've got to look like this, you've got to look like that, blah, blah, blah. It's the same with drinking. I walked into Morrison's yesterday and the whole foyer of Morrison's was full of crates of beer. And I was like, it's completely crazy. And it's the same with like the donuts and the sausage rolls. They're all on like individual tiers and they've got Krispy Kreme donut things in the foyer now. And it's like, come on, what is going on here? Really, society just sort of pushes all this stuff down. Like the alcohol industry spends £800 million per year just in the UK on advertising alcohol.
What?
800 million quid. That's how much the alcohol industry pays. That's a lot of money.
Crazy.
And then we get labelled as alcoholics because we get addicted to an addictive substance. It's like, hello, wake up, what's your problem? It just makes me fume. And it's the same with sticky buns and, it's a celebration time and you've got to have loads of alcohol, you've got to have lots of sweet things and it's like, just makes me cross.
Yeah, it doesn't encourage any kind of balance. It doesn't.
No.
They don't make it easy to drink soft drinks over alcohol. They don't make it easy to choose the foods that are not the highly processed stuff. Everything that is put in front of you, this is what's just come to mind. The stuff that is put in front of you is the stuff that is seen as treats or special occasion stuff or something to be had when there's something to celebrate. And the other stuff, the soft drinks, the more nutritious food, it's not up front and central with that stuff saying, here you are, this would be lovely for you to have while you're celebrating. It's all wrong. I can't believe the number. I can't believe the amount of money that's being spent on
800 million quid. And that's just in the UK. Yeah, it's crazy. I will say, though, the drinks industry are now cottoning on because the sober movement across not just the UK, just across the world, especially in the bigger countries, is really moving. And they've cottoned on now that people want choice. So they've cottoned on that, like, I can go down my local pub and now they've got non-alcoholic cider, non-alcoholic beer. The wine they're still getting better at. It is getting better. Sainsbury's do a lovely no secco, which if you like bubbles is really lovely. And it's, they're crafty though, it used to be quite cheap. They're bumping up the price and it's like, I know the different processes of, the fermentation and things, because obviously it's the sugar that makes the alcohol. So it's very interesting. I won't go into it, but brewing the non-alcoholics drinks is like 5 or 6 different ways of doing it. But there's a lot more choice out there and that's good. And I'm plant-based now, and that's for medical reasons. My cholesterol was sky high, which runs in the family, and I was pre-diabetic. And I decided just to do Veganuary a couple of years ago, and I really enjoyed it. It gave me lots of energy, and I've carried on with that. And there's a lot more sort of plant-based eating places out there as well now. But they know how to charge, but they are a business at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So, they've got to cover their costs. But
one of my daughters is vegetarian. And so the rest of the family isn't, but she is. So when we shop looking for those products, they've got, like you say, great ranges now. Really, really good selection of food for people to choose from. But yeah, don't they ever put the price up? They've got a very captured niche market there, haven't they?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. The industry are very, very crafty as well. I know a lot of research papers that you read, when you find out who's funded them, when it's on the big tick positive side of alcohol, like it's good for your heart, which is a load of rubbish, it's not. You find that it's been the drinks industry that's actually funded that. So you've got to be careful. They're very, very sneaky, very sneaky. But yeah, alcohol is toxic, very toxic to our bodies. It's a carcinogen, so it's directly linked with 7 different types of cancer. My cousin, sadly, has got bowel cancer at the moment. He's been a big beer drinker, as have all my uncles and my cousins. My brother is a big drinker too, and I just had a quiet word and just said, look, please reconsider. Just swapping out an alcoholic drink for a non-alcoholic alternative. Just, you don't have to make massive strides. I'm sure it's the same with your clients. You don't have to make massive strides. You just do tiny steps, like tiny steps around your mindset, tiny steps around, your choices. But yeah, I think emotionally drinking for me, and I'm sure it's the same for your clients, when those emotions come up, we just want to push them away. And what I teach my clients is actually sit in with them. Let's look at that emotion, because what happens is you get a thought, then an emotion or feeling appears, and then you take an action. So it's breaking that cycle. That thought is just a thought. It's not reality. It's just something you've made up in your head. And it's not really reality until you make it reality and you act on it and actually, you turn it over in your head, don't you, for such a long time. And then you get really down in the dumps. And then you press the FUCK button and you think, I'll just, I'll binge, or I'll get a bottle of wine, or I'll get a couple of beers and a bottle of wine. And it's just sitting with those emotions. I mean, I'm not a massive journaler, but I will write down when I'm feeling angry about something. I will sit and I'll just spew it all out on paper, and then I'll tear it up so nobody can find it. And that really helps me when I get really annoyed or I'm feeling really fed up. It doesn't happen very often now, but I think it's good to get stuff out, or have a really good friend, or just talk. I used to scream on the way home from work driving. I used to scream my head off until I was hoarse, because I was so frustrated when I wasn't drinking, and I'd have an awful day at work. People must have thought I was mental.
Let them think it, Carol.
But it helps. It just gets all that emotion out. And if you sit with that emotion and think, where's it come from? What's triggered it? And maybe you've seen something on TV. Maybe somebody said something, or you've remembered and it's triggered something someone said to you some time ago. And then that thought, and then you start mulling it over, and then it brings all these emotions up. So it's just training yourself it's just awareness and just catching it.
There's lots of studies that prove the benefits of journaling. I don't do it personally, but I know. Do as I say, not as I do. But I know that there's lots of benefits to it. And some other suggestions for journaling, it doesn't have to be written. So like you say, it can be writing it down. You can dispose of it after, because it's just a case of getting it out and then it's gone. You can voice note. So you can just record it onto a voice note. You don't have to save it. You don't have to hear it ever again if you don't want to. There's lots of different ways of getting it out. And like you say, having a trusted friend or something that you can just vent to every now and again.
The mirror is very good. Mel Robbins's High Five Challenge. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I love Mel Robbins.
Several of my friends have done it. And talking to myself in the mirror, you know, if I've got something coming up that I'm a bit nervous about, I'll be like, you can do it, Carol. What's your problem? You'll be all right. You'll be fine. Once you get up there, it'll just all come out. And I'm like, you know, stressing about something or something's happened. And I'll just talk to myself in the mirror and say, look, you took it that way. Did they really mean it that way? And a good way of doing things as well in the emotional change therapy is actually taking yourself out of yourself and be that second person looking down at yourself and re-examining it. Especially if it's a relationship, it's called the third position. You've sort of got you, and then you've got the person who you've got the issue with. And the third person is the observer. And what you do is you observe how you're feeling, observe how they're feeling, take yourself above the situation, and then look down and think, Carol's got a point, but this person who she's talking to, actually, she's been going through X, Y, Z. This has happened. I can see why she actually said that. And I'm sure she didn't mean it. And you can really, when you start breaking things down, like I said about perception, it's all about our perception. And just awareness is my big word, being aware. And once you're aware, that's half the battle. And then it's just finding the right path and right solution. Because what I use in my alcohol work is not traditional detoxing AA work. It is all around science, what alcohol does to the body, and around mindset. Now, what I do might not fit some people. AA is fantastic for some people. It's a great community. The support is fabulous. You know, people find Turning Point, there's Smart Recovery, there's loads of different avenues around that area of drinking that you can turn to. And you've just got to find what fits you, really. And it doesn't really matter as long as it does the job and as long as you change your thinking around drinking.
And there's no shame in that, right? There's no shame in saying, actually, I've had enough, or I feel like I do have an issue with controlling the amount of alcohol I drink. There's no shame in that. There's
no shame because it's addictive. And you know, if you do have a blip, same with eating. If you decided on that particular day that you're going to choose a nutritional meal and you end up thinking, oh, sorry, I've been too busy, I'm just going to grab a bag of chips from the chip shop and some curry sauce, which I absolutely love.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. And the thing is, we beat ourselves up. And the thing is, we call it a data point because you are collecting data. So what you need to do is then look back at, why did I actually need that bag of chips? Well, I needed that bag of chips because I was busy. Why were you busy? Well, I was busy because I've got that much in my calendar today. Okay, well, why was that? Well, that's probably because I'm not prioritizing and I'm people pleasing and I'm opening myself up to too many people. So maybe you want to think about looking at a different technique, like the Pomodoro technique or whatever, like Eat That Frog, which is a great book on prioritizing. And it's just backtracking to see where that trigger came from. And then once you fix what the stress is, you don't get to the point, you know. I mean, I've not even gone into cravings, crumbs. That's a whole new ball game. We'll be here for hours, Terry.
Yeah, do you know what? I've got this list of stuff in front of me. We haven't talked about half of it because it's all just so interesting. But we don't have all day, which is a shame. Right. So now everybody's like, okay, I can do this. I can take a break, because the giving up forever feels massive, but maybe I can start and just have a break. What can you give people? What tips do you have to get going?
It's tiny steps. So I give my clients an exercise really as to why you drink. So what reasons do you use alcohol? And often it's emotional reasons. It's never, occasionally it's, I love the taste of wine, which is a fair point. But most people that drink it think, oh, that's disgusting. And you just persevere to fit in with everybody else until you do like it, which is what I did. But yeah, why you drink. So we look at that. And my clients can still be drinking and come to me. And it's what we call the pause. So we stop beating ourselves up for drinking and take the should, all those shoulds out of our head, because it's a rubbish word. We don't want it in our vocabulary, should.
I agree.
Yeah. And we look at all the reasons why we drink and the emotions around it while they're still drinking. And then we'll look at the background as to emotions and where they come from. Like with me, it was my son, and I just had to get my head around the medical side of why it really wasn't my fault. I just had to do some research and found out that my son's brain was just wired differently. There wasn't anything in particular that I'd done. I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, I ate fairly healthily when I was carrying him. So there was nothing out of the ordinary that I did. So it's just unpicking the reasons why. And again, they can still be drinking. And then we work on mindset, and we work on something called the ACT technique, which is awareness, clarity, and turnaround. So we look at the awareness as, I'm drinking too much. The clarity is why. Well, where did that actually stem from? Well, that actually came from, for me, with my son. It could be from, I don't know, you going out with your mates when you were 18 in university and getting absolutely slaughtered every weekend. And that sort of carried on because it's just a habit. So we look at the clarity, and then we look at the turnaround. And the turnaround's quite important because we look at thoughts and we look at beliefs. Thoughts are fairly easy to turn around. So if you say it gets to 9 o'clock at night, did I do it last night? Or was it the night before? My husband bought some lime cheesecake things, and he put them in the, and I was telling you about this, I'm terrible. About 9 o'clock, I get the munchies. Now I can have a couple of dates, but sometimes I'm just like, nah. And I came with the spoon.
You and me both.
Like, what are you doing? That's my lime cheesecake. I said, it was your lime cheesecake. So we have a turnaround. So the turnaround on that thought, when I sat in my chair at 9 o'clock thinking, I want that cheesecake. If I let that craving progress, then I will have that cheesecake. But if I catch that thought and think, no, Carol, you're actually having a healthy day today. We can have some carbs or rubbish or whatever you want to eat on Friday. That's fine. But today's Wednesday and we're going to have a couple of dates instead, and I can catch it. So that's the turnaround, is saying to yourself and training yourself, because what happens is the more you do that, the more your subconscious realizes that things are changing. And there's something called neuroplasticity, where you actually change the structure of your brain. It's amazing, Terry. You're nodding, so you know about it. It's amazing. We can grow new cells, neurogenesis. It's amazing what we can do to our brain. And the more that little devil on our shoulder, it'll get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until it goes poof and it disappears, which is what's happened with alcohol.
I think there's a slightly different and possibly, dare I say it, easier way to do that with alcohol as well, because with the food, with the evening eating thing is a perfect example. Me too. I do that. I eat in the evenings. Many people eat in the evenings. When it comes to the evenings, we can say, right, I want something to eat. Why do I want it? Am I hungry? Not really. Okay. So I just want it. Why do I want it? Is there anything emotional going on? Or do I just fancy it? If I just fancy it, fine. What do I want? Or if it's something emotional, okay, good. Let's have a look at that. And so you can pick into it a little bit. And at the end of the day, it's still, you might still choose to have the cheesecake or, whatever it is that you go for. And that is absolutely fine. I think with the alcohol, it might be slightly easier. Oh, please tell me if I'm wrong, because I'm making assumptions. But for me, that conversation goes a little bit like, right, I'd like a glass of wine. Well, why do you want a glass of wine? It's been a tough day. Okay, it's been a tough day, but can you do something else? Can you go and have a nice warm bath? Can you get a nice movie on and get some snacks? Can you do this, that, and the other? Because there's a very definite reason why you would not drink. I think the eating is slightly more difficult because you don't have to not eat.
Yeah.
But the drinking, you can say, do you know what? I've decided this is not good for me, which maybe makes that a little bit easier to determine why you want it and why you should tell yourself not to have it.
Absolutely. And at the beginning, I think on your journey, not drinking, distraction techniques are excellent. They're really good ways to deal with, because we often use willpower. Now, willpower is like a battery. It just runs out. I always got to a 3-week, there's something about 21 days scientifically. I can't remember, I've not looked into it yet, but there's something at the 21-day period where we just press that button again. But yeah, distraction techniques are good. But what I do, and that's probably what I use at the beginning, but as you get a little bit more down the road with alcohol, it's dealing with the emotion itself. Like you said, do you really want it? Why do you want it? Well, I've had a shitty day today. It's been really stressful. Well, is there something else? And the turnaround is, is there something else that you can do to relieve that stress instead of having a glass of wine? So that would be a turnaround again, but it'd be a turnaround on a belief, because the belief for me with alcohol to de-stress and relax was so ingrained in me that it wasn't a matter of a thought popping in. It was a deep ingrained belief. So I would then sit with my emotion, I would journal, and I would unpick it, and I would speak to my coach that I had at the time when I was doing I was already alcohol free, but I would speak to the people that I'd joined a lot of communities when I first decided to give up alcohol. I found that really beneficial, Terry, for people listening. I don't know, I'm sure you've got a free group where you can get a community of like-minded people, and where there's some accountability too, and it's good to be with like-minded people because they really do understand where you're at, really do understand, and they're not going to beat you over the head with a large stick when you do something that you said you're not going to do, and they're there with open arms to go, it's okay, don't worry about it, it's fine. And I found that really beneficial, and that's where I'd turn to if I'd had a poopy horrible day and felt like a drink. And my husband drank the whole way through. Don't expect me to give up. And I went, I don't. And my husband's had cancer, and it's carcinogenic, and I'm like, okay. So I've really had to rein my feelings in with my husband and just bite my tongue. I've never lectured him, and I'm not a Bible bashing, alcohol bashing person. I consider myself an educator. I think when you educate people about something that is detrimental to their health, they then have got a choice. And I think it's really important to have choice. And around alcohols specifically, I didn't know it was a class 1 carcinogen. I didn't know that it caused cancer. I knew it wasn't good for your health, but I didn't know until I read Annie Grace's book, which is This Naked Mind, which is where I started. And if people are listening, I would highly recommend getting Annie's book. I didn't know that. And it was that was a pivotal moment for me, because I thought, you know what? I want to be here for my kids. I want to be here for my grandkids, for my husband. I don't want to be gone at 65, 70, which I might have been. Who knows? But hey, here I am, alcohol free.
Yeah.
I don't know how many days. I haven't got my phone, so I can't tell you. I know I've saved about £20,000 since the 31st of October 2019. And I've saved about 80 odd weeks of my time that I would have sat on the sofa drinking. And it'll be 4 years in October.
Wow.
And I don't miss it one iota.
That's so good to hear, because that, I think, is down the road what we worry about. What if I miss it? I enjoy drinking. I enjoy feeling a little bit tipsy. What if I miss it? But you're obviously living proof that when life is better, when you feel better, when you feel more healthy, when you know you're doing the best thing for you and your health and your family, God, that's got to far outweigh everything, hasn't it?
Oh, people, I just wish I could put somebody in my shoes for a weekend. I really do, because, excuse me, life is in Technicolor. Honestly, people probably think I'm stupid, but I'm not wandering around with a foggy head anymore. You know, I've got time for people. I'm not consumed at 5 o'clock. I didn't used to think about alcohol in the day, but at sort of 5 o'clock, I'm driving home from work. That'd be the first thing that was the battle I had, was getting past blooming Sainsbury's in the car. And the car used to swerve in, grab a bar of chocolate, grab a big bottle of wine and 2 big beers, and, you know, and sometimes it wouldn't. But yeah, I considered drinking on my first anniversary, about 2 weeks before. The alcohol monster, that whisper, that devil on my shoulder came out again. I hadn't heard from them for a while. It's like, oh, Carol, you've done really great. You're coming up to a year. That's fantastic. Go and get a bottle of champagne.
Oh, no.
Let's celebrate. And I'm like, whoa, where did you come from?
Yeah.
I'm like, really? You're serious? And I considered it right up until the day before my first anniversary. I didn't nearly go and buy one, but I considered it and thought about it. And I thought, you sneaky little so-and-so. And the thing is, it's so easy to go back. And I've heard so many people say they've had 2, 3, 4 years, 10 years off alcohol. And as soon as they start drinking again, bang, they're back to exactly where they were before, because of our memory. We remember it.
Yeah. Wow. Right, what have you got going on, Carol? What can people get involved with if they're sold on this now, because you're wonderful and we know that you're this lovely, wonderful coach? What can they do? How can they get involved? Where can they find you? What have you got going on that they can do?
I have got a gift for all the listeners. If they want to go to my website, which is warriormumcoaching.com, there is a PDF they can download, which is the 3 biggest mistakes mums make when trying to quit drinking. I put this together because these are the mistakes that I made. So they can go and download that for free. They can listen to my podcast, Kicking Habits, which is solo episodes of me, and also where I interview people that have had a history with alcohol and drugs as well.
It's so good. I do listen. It's a really good podcast. Everybody, you do need to go and listen to it.
So I've got that. I do obviously one-to-one coaching, so people can get in touch with me. I'm on all the social media platforms. I'm sure you'll put the links in the show notes.
I will.
The massive thing I've got coming up is my 7-day sober sprint, which is a week off alcohol. So it runs Wednesday through to Tuesday. So it covers the weekend, and it's going to be amazing because I'm just going to be giving lots of tips, lots of techniques. It's going to be a real tight-knit private community where people can get together and really support each other, pick my brains until I've got no brains left around alcohol, and really help them just make a tiny step forward into either moderating, cutting back, or just taking a break. So again, that link will be in the show notes, and that starts on the 19th of July for 7 days.
Is that free or is it paid?
Completely free. Completely
awesome.
Free. Yeah, no, I'm a big giver. I think, like you, it's really important as a coach to give lots of value. And, if it's anybody out there that deals with real anxiety and my emotional change therapy, I am more than happy to hear from you, because I've got some super techniques that are quick and easy to use. And I'm more than happy for you to get hold of me and have a chat around that too. So, yeah, I'm here for your listeners. So just get in touch.
Thank you, Carol. I appreciate that. I will put all the links in the show notes. I know there's been some other things that you've mentioned that we can link to as well. And I know you mentioned at the beginning that if you do have issues, addictive issues around alcohol, physically addicted to alcohol, that sort of thing. Can you give us some links that we can put in the show notes as well for people if they feel like they need more help than you can provide?
Yeah.
Can you give me some resources that I can link?
I think the first thing is GP.
Okay.
Definitely GP. If you don't feel you're able to speak to your GP, then you can self-refer. But yeah, you see, the thing is, it depends on what district you live in, Terry, as to what's available. That's why I think your GP, and just giving them a call, or just even Google, I have a physical addiction to alcohol. Where is there help in my local area? I know here with the Lincolnshire National Health Service, they've got something called Steps to Change, and you can self-refer to that. But yeah, just check out your local area. But first port of call is definitely if you can get an appointment, that is. I didn't say that, did I?
No, that's another conversation for another day, isn't it? Oh, Carol, thank you. Oh, there's so much value in this. I really appreciate your time. I really hope that people follow.
I can't believe we've been as long as we've been. Sorry, listeners, we've been gabbling.
Sorry, not sorry. Oh, Carol, I really hope everybody gets in touch, gives you a follow on your social medias, gets involved with the Sober Sprint. Yeah, there's a lot to offer. And thank you, Carol. I really appreciate your time.
No worries. Thank you. It's been a delight. Take care.